Sam, the live is on.
Okay. The live is on. Be careful, Griner.
Yeah, because you say stuff. I try to keep you out of trouble.
That's
Joe's
right.
my
You did
man.
take care
Don't
of me.
don't don't be trying to talk bad about Joe.
I love Joe. Me and Joe got a great relationship. I talked to him on the phone. He gave me some insight on the independence teams.
Is he staying at Alabama?
Mm, no, they're bringing in the O line's bringing his tight end guy.
So
But
where's he going to
I mean,
go to? Does he know?
Alabama still has to pay him for this year coming up. He's under contract, but he'll have a lot of options. I mean, he's really good. I think
Sam, we're on the live, sir.
I know. I'm just giving some good insight.
You are getting some good insight. I
Yeah.
have no doubt he'll be coaching somewhere.
Yeah, Joe Cox is unbelievable. He's very sought after. I think he might end up going into a coordinator role too.
I
All
think
right,
he'd be a
so
great
we got a pretty good quorum here. Let's crank this thing up. Hit the go button and get started. So we came out, or I came out with the all-time all-observer list, and a lot of these guys on the board disagree with some of my choices. I'm sure some of you guys out there may disagree or agree with my choices. I just wanted to let's go to Dale. Dale, what were your thoughts when you saw the all-anniversary team? Because I know you and I over the years have
The teams or
the players.
the players?
Let's start with the players.
Langston, it's hard to do what you did. And I can say, yeah, what about this player or that player? But I can't say that the players that you put on the team aren't worthy of being on the team.
Mm.
So, I mean, I know you love Chris Leak, so I figured Chris Leak was going to be your number one guy.
I thought he was the best player that I've seen. That was just my opinion, and I didn't have a lot of pushback with the guys that helped me out. But let's talk about the quarterbacks. We had Chris Leak, as you see there. We had Will Greer. I know Gary had a problem with Will Greer. We had Keith Mackins. Keith Mackins may be one of the best athletes I've ever covered. He was two-time All-State in two sports, which is crazy. And then Joe Cox, who I know you're very fond of, Dale, also made it. And then Drake May. So let's start there with those five. I mean, any surprises that you guys saw or people you thought that I left out in the court? Mark May didn't. It was not. This is Sweet 16 era. It was 84 to now. Mark May.
Yeah, yes. Sweet 16 era.
Everybody asked me, what about Mark May? And I said he came after the Sweet 16.
Yeah, he came
before. He came before.
Was he before the Sweet? Yeah. I guess he was.
He was.
That is correct. But he is one of the greatest athletes.
Oh yeah. If we were doing the all-time forever Charlotte athlete, he would definitely be on there.
Yeah, I got a question about Mark May and Mike Epley. That was the two people that people like. How could they not?
That's Dale's guy.
That's my guy there. Mike Epley is the best.
That's his guy. But Sam, these quarterbacks I picked, did I get it right? Did I get it wrong?
Yeah, I think you got it right on the aspects of championships, as well as production. Chris Leak, I don't think is going to be nowhere nearly as good as a prospect as Drake May is for the future of a career. But the combination, the one thing you cannot argue with all the lists you brought up, like there is not one doubt. Tommy Knotts is by far the greatest coach.
Well, hold on, we're gonna come to that. Let's stick with the players.
But what I'm telling you is it's a combination. When you have the combination of such a great coach and a good product on the field as in Chris Leak, it skyrockets their own ability. See, I think you maxed out Chris Leak. That's why he's the number one. His production. You put him with someone else, a different type of coach. I don't know if his production would have been as good as like a Will Greer's or something.
Right.
Yeah. So Langston, I want to say one thing about Chris Leak that kind of really opened my eyes to where high school football was going. Chris Leak, and I know his brother got a lot of this same kind of personal trainer coaching, etc.
Yeah.
But the Mark Mays, the Mike Epleys, certainly not. The quarterbacks prior didn't get, I think, the attention that we see quarterbacks getting today. And Chris Leak was like maybe the first player that I really recognized with all that extra coaching coming into high school. He got offered before he was in high school.
No,
right?
it was unusual back then.
So
it was on USA Today when he got offered in 8th grade.
Exactly. So I think that's the biggest thing I remember about Chris Leak is
another thing about this group of 5 that you have here in Langston.
Yep.
I coached against 5 of them. I didn't coach against Will Greer because he was private school, but I coached against the other 4.
Yep.
And it's also before the advent of the 7-on-7 passing teams.
Yes.
Where kids play for a specific team, kind of like AAU basketball. Now they have 7-on-7 teams for football.
Right.
And none of these kids benefited from that type of coaching. As Dale was saying, they had 7-on-7 in the summer, but it was against, either their own team or local teams. I know the first time I saw Chris Leak, we used to play when I was at Vance. We would play Independence every Wednesday night in 7-on-7. We didn't play against anybody else unless we went to a team camp. But we would play against them because our head coach, Gary Finger, and Coach Tommy Knox came from the same staff at West Charlotte, and they were friends. And so they put together and we would practice. And so we practiced together on Wednesday nights. And that's where I first got a chance to see Chris Leak. And I knew right when he was.
I think tell you one thing about 7-on-7. You might find it interesting, I think. In the summer of Joe Cox's senior year, they did 7-on-7 against Maurice Flowers' Olympic team a lot. And I went to those. And I already knew Joe Cox rather well. And during one of the sessions when Olympic was on offense, I asked Joe, I said, what do you think about this offense here? And he just had a big grin and he's like, man, I wish I could play in something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think that Alex Bass has a good point. I mean, Riley Ferguson has got to be in discussion of what he did with championships as well. And his production, even when he went into college, he broke Paxton Lynch's records at Memphis.
And so his Riley Ferguson is there.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump to the running backs and get you guys' thoughts on running backs. We had Elijah Hood of Charlotte Catholic, Brian Knuckles, who I'm sure Dale remembers of West Charlotte, Fred Staten, who played at Country Day and West Charlotte, Reggie Clark, and then Quavaris Crouch, who Sam's probably familiar with. What do you guys think about those picks?
Where's Ryan Houston?
Ryan Houston almost made it. He was one of the guys that was right off. I put a story out today. He and his dad both were right on the cusp of making it.
Yeah, I was going to say his dad. And you should consider doing a father-son. Because you got Ships, you got Houston.
That's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea.
But I want to be certain that everyone gets to see the father-son edition for boys basketball because that's got to be done a certain way.
Oh my goodness!
Why did Knuckles finish second?
But we felt like Elijah being National Player of the Year. He had 9,000 yards rushing compared to 5. I mean, I realize it's different eras, but it was close. We could have gone either way, but I kind of felt like the Max Preps National Player of the Year stuff kind of took him over the top. Although when Knuckles was playing, Knuckles and Stephen Davis were considered the 2 best running back prospects maybe ever in their respective states. It was really close.
Isn't Knuckles the best player West Charlotte's ever had?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah, I would too.
Well, Tommy Knotts would still consider him. I don't know if you'd ask him today that's the best player he's ever coached.
Yeah.
Brian Knuckles was unreal. Brian Knuckles was, he was big.
He was a man playing with boys. He was a man playing with boys.
Yeah, he had incredible vision. He went to Nebraska when Nebraska was like Alabama now. Nebraska was the school. He went to Coffeyville, Kansas, and set JUCO records. He was an incredible football player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He did play high school when he was 27 years old, too.
There you
go. Langston, if I may, and I'll go with this in the form of a question, and we can talk about this later if it's more appropriate. I did find it interesting. How did you go about determining where and in which category Alvin Pearman would be included, because he didn't make the running back list, but he did make the athlete list. We all know Alvin Pearman was a landmark or transcendent figure in terms of cementing the independent schools place in the Charlotte Mecklenburg football scene. How did you go about determining running back or athlete? How did you do that?
And tell us why his brother's not on your list.
His brother didn't show up on first team all observer. I mean, you had to be first team all observer for us.
Andrew?
Yeah,
Andrew didn't make first team.
Langston, tell our viewers what the criteria you used and whoever helped you make the selection.
Well, there were about 6 people that helped me, and 3 in particular. But we went back and we pulled in 1997. We started doing all observer teams. We took the whole area and put them on a team. From 1984 to 1987, it was all Mecklenburg, all Piedmont, and all Upper State South Carolina. Some years, all Piedmont, all Upper State South Carolina became all region. But because our coverage area had changed so much over the years, we decided that we would just do the all Mecklenburg team. The players would be Mecklenburg, then we do a list of 10 guys outside of Mecklenburg, because we wanted this project to have the most impact it could. And if we're writing about kids at Winston-Salem somewhere or Myrtle Beach somewhere, it wouldn't have as much impact. I mean, I remember I've told you guys the story before. I took a Sweet 16 banner once in Spartanburg. The principal looked at me like I had 3 eyes. He had no idea what it was, took the banner, put it in the drawer. And so I wanted to make sure that this project would hit with the most impact. Now, I think it did, judging by my phone calls and emails, I think it did. But that's how we did it. And we were looking for guys you had to be first team, all Mecklenburg, all observer. And then we were looking for guys who had multiple times being on the teams. And then beyond that, we looked for guys who had made all state, all, a national award of something like that. Those are kind of the things that we looked at. And, when you start going back, what I thought I remembered wasn't accurate. Like some guys I thought had been on multiple first teams had not been first team at all. So it was kind of instructive for me to kind of go back and see that. But that's how we picked it. And ultimately it's subjective, Gary, when, once you get that big fat list of all these guys who make first team and multiple times first team, and I can tell you it's going to be a lot harder in basketball because a lot more people to show up like that. But that's what we did. And ultimately that's kind of what we came up with. And to answer your question, that's about Alvin Pearman. He was close to making it as a running back. But, we put him on the team. Oh, we lost Alex. We put him on the team as a punt returner and a kick returner in 2 separate times. So that's why we put him on as a special teams person.
He was a great player.
He was kind of the first private school player I thought that really kind of crossed over, use a music term. I thought that,
fast.
Now, first of all, I don't think people understand the time and effort that it took you to do all these things. I think it needed to be done, and I think you did a phenomenal job. Is it perfect? Everybody's going to be opinionated, but I mean, kudos to you, Langston, and the team that helped put this together, because you did a phenomenal job. And then we're going to criticize a little bit of that, but did a great job, brother. You really did.
I don't think it's criticizing, just
it took quite a while to get it done. Quite a while to get it done. All right, offensive line.
I think with the running back, with Kavash Crouch, if he performed similar to what he did his junior year, he could have been higher because he had
if he played his senior year, I think he could have had a chance to have been much higher.
No doubt, because he was the number 1 player recruited.
Yeah,
and then we've never had that until at that time.
No, he was the first one at that time.
But Ryan Houston was such a great running back and played defensive end at the same time.
I think you're wrong there, though, Dale. I think that Juwan Edwards was a better running back for his
Juwan Edwards was a great running back.
Yeah, this is the list I put out today. What? That's the wrong list. Hold on. Can you guys see that with Jeff Burris at the top?
Well, we
hold on. I got to switch it out.
DJ Humphries, no doubt. Mo Collins, baby. I don't know. It might be hard to argue that one. He might be number 1, brother. He's Super Bowl champ.
Yeah.
He was a good one.
See, this was a guy that surprised me. Like Trey Bauer was a 3-time first-team All-Mecklenburg player, and I didn't remember that going back. He made four All-Mecklenburg teams. Every year he played, he made All-Mecklenburg.
Yeah, those were some good teams.
That was something that I didn't remember. So going back, as I was going back, I didn't remember that. And
Coach Mack.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that was a fun memory for me to kind of go back and see that. And then we had Scott Shuford, who was a 2-time All-State player for Independence. And we had Mark Harrell, who
I remember him.
Who was a stud. He was All-American. Yeah. So the linemen were really hard. We had so many good linemen. I'm sure that Raj Ferguson was close to getting on there from South Meck back in the 89, 90. We had a couple West Charlotte.
What was the big guy that played at East Meck? I think he went on to play at Carolina and played for the Dallas Cowboys. I know he had to be on there twice.
I thought you were going to say Mark Tuck, but that was way before that.
God, I can't remember his name. He
James
played Wagstaff. Yeah, what about James Wagstaff? You remember Big Wags?
I
was in school with him at UNC.
He didn't show up on our charts.
Okay.
And I think the other thing that we kind of struggled with, Gary, was that, are we just talking about what you did in high school? Are we taking what you did after high school? And we kind of lean more towards just as being a high school award. I mean, although you have to realize that, Elijah Hood went on to Carolina and played it for the Panthers and whatnot, but we really kind of 95%, I would say, focused on what you did in high school.
I think that's the correct way to do it because it's in a high school award that we're doing. You can't jump ahead to what, just because they made it to the NFL.
All right, so the wide receivers, we got Steve Shipp. I'm sure you got very surprised I named Steve Shipp as the best wide receiver. I'm sure
his son is better.
I didn't want to agree with you, but this past year I would probably agree with you. There's something about his son Jordan. I like
exactly. His son is better.
Yeah, and then
we love Steve Shipp. Great ball.
We have Marty Staley, and then we had Muhammad Massaquoi, Miles Thorne, and Hakeem Nicks. Those were the receivers. This was probably the toughest one to pick. This was the toughest one to pick.
No.
5 were coached by Tommy Knox.
Now I'm gonna make a big argument later. Just remember what you have on here, okay? So you have Hakeem Nicks and Massaquoi.
Yes.
Okay, in your top 5. Okay, yes. So just 2004. Gonna make an argument for you in a minute. So.
All right. Yeah. We'll go to tight ends. We got Jeremiah Hall of Vance, Jack Larson of Kelly. I think he's the only. I had 2 current guys on here. He was one of them. Jack Larson.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool to be on the current all time right now. That's pretty cool.
Jalen Samuels. I didn't know where to put Jalen, but he played tight end some.
Wing back. You need a wing back.
He played running back some. Played a little there. One year we had him on as a tight end. One year we had him on as a running back. One year we had him on as an athlete. He made it 3 times. So Jeff Blazevich, who was just an absolute monster when he was at Charlotte Christian. They just could not deal with him. And then Thad Moss, won a state title at Victory Christian and won a state title at Mallard Creek. Yeah. And then our kickers, Nolan Hauser was the other guy, Sam, the current guy.
No brainer.
His numbers just speak for him. He holds like a gazillion kicking records in North Carolina. He holds a national career field goal. Brett Speakman
had the biggest boot.
Well, Brett Speakman used to have the biggest boot. Brett Speakman, I was at the game when he made 2 55-yard field goals. I couldn't believe it.
Jeff Reed, still around the area too.
Jeff Reed, he's at Boardwalk Village down there on Sardis, where I go all the time.
He trains kickers around there. Great guy too.
He does.
Phenomenal person.
Chris Inkebine in Providence, who had another one, made a lot of great field goals. And Paul Griggs, who was an incredible shot last. He was a U.S. Army All-American. He was really, really good.
I ain't gonna. I'd take one of these guys in a heartbeat. I'd make a good trade for one of these kickers.
The kickers, we did not have as many great ones to choose from. They're about 7 or 8, but leaving off 2 or 3 was hard because they were all so close. They all had incredible numbers, but that's kind of what we stuck with. And then we got to the athletes, and to me, James Smith he was a 3-time state championship MVP. He was just a winner. He was he's a running back playing quarterback, but he was just a great athlete. He won three straight state titles at Mallard Creek, and then Casey Concepcion was almost a current player.
Well, just to go back to that, there's big controversy here. Number one, cool story is the number 7 he wears for the longest while Coach P was still involved in Mallard Creek. Yeah. They respected him so much. No one was allowed to wear number 7 again while Coach P was there. Yeah. So that's a pretty cool story.
You can make an argument that he was the best high school player that Mallard Creek had in their run.
No doubt.
Casey Concepcion was there at number 2, and then Marquez North, who played, I think he also played at North Meck before he went to Mallard Creek. He was just scary. I mean, people ask me all the time, who are the most dangerous guys you've seen with the ball? And my answer is easy. Marquez North, Rabbit Waddell, and the kid at A.L. Brown, Nick Maddox. I mean, those 3 guys had the ball. I was like, dude, if Marquez North got an open field, forget about it. And then Ray Durham's, I think, Dale, you remember Ray Durham.
Oh, without question, yeah.
Ray Durham made the All-State team as a defensive back and a wide receiver. As a defensive back, he made the All-State team. He was the observer player of the year as a wide receiver. He was really good.
He was really, really good.
That's a strong list right there. These 5.
And then there's your guy Alvin Pearman, Alex.
I'm going to say Pearman's too low on this list because of the transcendent figure he was and the landmark figure he was in terms of laying the foundation for the NCISAA's place in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg football landscape. Alvin Pearman was for Charlotte and the NCISAA what Antoine Harris at Ravenscroft was in Raleigh.
Antoine Harris, I remember that.
Harris.
He broke a lot of hearts down in Charlotte back in the day.
Yeah, I saw Antoine. Yeah, I saw Antoine at the John Wall Holiday Invitational, and still is catering and has a truck business and just doing a lot of good things in the community. So Antoine preceded Pearman. Antoine was the transcendent figure in Raleigh, Alvin Pearman in Charlotte. So I would think Pearman would have been a little higher. I will also point out that Casey Concepcion at number 2, that Casey Concepcion, for as great as he was held scoreless by Nick Drew's defense.
Not by the storm. By the storm.
He got shut out by the storm. I was going to say, when they played on the dry field, he had a big game. All right, defensive line. Nick Drew, much love, man, much love. Nick Drew, we got Romeo Aquara of Ardrigel, who the guys that were with me, he was the first name they said, by the way. They said, he's got to be on there, Romeo Aquara. Then I looked him up. I said, oh, yeah, I remember Romeo Aquara.
Wow.
Jordan Davis of Mallard Creek went to Georgia, won a Natty. Then went to the Eagles, went to the Super Bowl.
We'll be playing on TV tonight in the playoff game.
Chris Canty, who you guys probably see on doing NFL broadcasting now. I think it's on Fox now, one of the networks. He's
on ESPN.
ESPN, but he's a phenomenal high school player, and then he went to Virginia, was a phenomenal college player. Robert Springs, Independence. And when we were looking back, he dominated that era back then. Along with one of his teammates, we'll get to when we talk about the linebackers. And then Tony Hamer back from '86. We talked to a couple guys that had made all Mecklenburg teams back in that time period, and they all said he was the best player they'd ever seen. We had 6 guys say he was the best player they'd ever seen. The guys who played in his time.
Langston, where did Mark Dragg fall out?
He didn't track.
He didn't track. All-State.
He didn't track.
What are you talking about?
He didn't track.
Didn't track. One of the best linemen we've had.
He didn't track.
Okay.
And then we get to the linebackers. Power Eccles, he was a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, Associated Press, and he'd probably been 3-time had it not been for COVID, and he left there at school early. Tony Horton of East Meck was Shrine Bowler. He was an All-American, All-State player. He's one of the guys that actually emailed me when this came out. He sent me a really nice email. Roman Pfeiffer, you guys are probably familiar with. All-Observer, All-State, went to UCLA, played a long time in the NFL. He was a 3-sport athlete. He showed up in basketball. He showed up in track. As I was looking through the archive, just in everything.
I think he's in the front office with the Broncos, or he used to be anyway.
Okay. And then this is the other guy I was talking about that dominated that period in the 80s, D'Angelo Lloyd of Independence.
My goodness, he was just a rugged specimen.
Yeah,
He was Julius Peppers before Julius Peppers.
Yeah, I didn't remember this. We picked him as Player of the Year over Steve Shipp the year that Steve Shipp made Parade All-American that year. That's how good he was.
Yeah, and then he led his team to a state championship in basketball.
He did.
I mean, his agility, his footwork, his poise, his touch on the basketball court in that type of a body. The first time I saw that kid, I was like, wow.
Yeah, he was Julius Peppers in high school.
He was, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You
talking about D'Angelo Lloyd?
And then Peter Colombai, Sam, I'm sure you're familiar with him.
Yes.
He was as good as I've ever seen. I mean, he was crazy good.
I mean, y'all know that he actually played with Chris Frost as well on the same team.
Chris Frost, a guy who almost made it. Very close to making it.
I would assume he'd be in the top, top something.
If I was going 10 deep, he'd have been on it for sure. But Chris Frost.
All right. So there's a glaring miss here.
What's that?
Sam Griner.
I got better with age, brother. I can tell you that.
Weren't you a running back, Sam?
Yeah, and when I played with D'Angelo Lloyd, I was the running back for the speed. Yeah,
but you played linebacker at Butler, right?
No, I played. 1 year, 2 years linebacker, 2 years defensive back. I moved to corner.
So Cam's
and they don't put too many guys that look like me in the defensive back area right now.
Now here's one of the best athletes.
Speaking of defensive backs, Cam, you might want to look away right now. We're talking about Jaire Alexander of the Packers. You might want to look away.
Jaire.
One of the best backs I've seen.
He was incredible, and he was kind of a unanimous pick at number one.
Can we put a little slash? I mean, he was a West Charlotte guy too at one time.
He did go to West Charlotte for a minute. That's true. But we were putting the graduating classes on. I probably should have put the slash on there.
That's another good one right there.
Presley Herring was All-Observer Player of the Year. And I didn't remember. That was before I started working there, but I didn't realize that. And so we went back and looked at it. I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive as a defensive back to win that award. But he's another guy who played multiple sports. When we look back, he showed up in basketball and track. I mean, he showed up in baseball when you.
Yeah, I thought he played baseball too.
He played everything.
And then Tyus Fields. He's
been a Phil Houston Award winner.
Yeah. And then Tyus Fields, you guys are probably familiar with as well. He's one of the best players in Huff history. Just incredible high school football player.
Blanton,
boy. He's one of the guys. Yeah, throw to him.
Robert Blanton. I would have, I'm a little biased, but I'd have Robert Blanton ahead of the Fields guy at least. Robert Blanton was probably one of the best football players I've ever seen play the game. Mm-hmm. Normally it's hard to take over a game at a corner position. This guy was different. Like, he coaches too, and he does a phenomenal job doing that. But like, we had to give that kid a mouthpiece every game. He chewed through his mouthpiece every game. Dude was different. I'm telling you, different.
And then Latrian Blanton was the last selection. Another guy who was a multi-sport athlete. You talked about Keith Mackins earlier. He was another guy who showed up in all Mecklenburg first team basketball, all Mecklenburg first team football, twice in football. And he's a two-time All-State selection in football as well. He was a point guard on the state championship team. He was just a great athlete.
No wonder people hated West Charlotte so much. They had everybody.
They had a lot of talent. Then punter Tommy Hibbert averaged 50 yards a punt his senior year. But I remember that pretty well.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. And Eddie Sipoliski of Providence, he was also a good kicker. Played at Arizona State. And A.J. Dingle of Garinger. A.J. Dingle showed up 3 times, which I did not remember.
That's pretty cool.
Andy Lavorne showed up twice as an all-Mecklenburg pick. I mean, he was a really good player. Then Robbie Kiesler of Independence back in the 80s. Another guy that, when we were interviewing people, they just said, you got to put Robbie Kiesler on there. He's really good. So we went back and looked, and he was legit.
What a cool list, though. You know what I'm saying? Getting to go back and look at this. I mean, imagine some of the guys that are older trying to tell their kids about how good they were. And they're like, look, I'm right here, man. It might be in black and white, but I'm just saying. Like,
No, I mean that was kind of the point. Was that we wanted to do something to celebrate 40 years of doing this, and it was a labor. It was a labor, but it became a labor of love. I actually enjoyed doing it. And then I did 10 guys from the outside of Charlotte that we picked as the 10 best players outside of Charlotte over the time. And Jeff Burris of Northwestern. Some of you guys may be familiar with him. He was just a phenomenal player. These are the 10 guys who just missed it. These are the 10 guys who just missed it. And then Shamar Finney of Crest, who was really, really good. he was a high school All-American. He was the number 2 recruit, Sam, behind Julius Peppers in '97, and Keith Mackins of West Charlotte was number 3. That '97 class for a long time was the best class we've ever had. And then
that's about the time, I would say, or right around that time, that you saw the best where North Carolina, like Charlotte area, became like a very dominant.
That's when it started to come, because the Panthers had gotten here and a lot of former athletes were coming and training and stuff. But there's Dale, there's your Ryan Houston.
There's my boy.
Anthony Houston combo. That he really got close to making it. And then Josh Ladowski, I'm sure you guys remember, just went nuts his senior year. He became state player of the year. He was actually a runner-up and observer player of the year to James Smith, but he had a phenomenal senior season. Then he went and played baseball at UNC. Natrone Means, Cam, your guy, was very close to making it. And then KP Parks, I was the player that I probably wanted to put on this list.
Is tailback.
The most would have been KP Parks, but and we just did Charlotte. But if I was doing everybody, it'd have been hard to keep him off.
KP's a true tailback.
No, he was really good. He set a lot of records. And then Dale, I'm sure you remember the Rayner brothers at West Charlotte back in the '90s. They were dominant. Yeah. Both of them were dominant. We chose Wiley, but I mean Jemiah was good as well. And then Darius Thomas from West Charlotte, Sam, another West Charlotte guy. He was state player of the year in 2007. They ended up having to forfeit a bunch of games that year, but he set state records and school records, and then AP state player. And then Mike Thomas made Parade All-American as a punter, but he went to Carolina as a quarterback.
He was a great ball player.
That's unbelievable.
He's a great ball player. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy? Look how big. Look at it. Get back to that picture right there. Look,
where's the lizard?
How big are the hip pads back in the day?
Lizard was on guy. Lizard was with Anthony Houston. It was Anthony.
The Lizard didn't make the near list.
He did. There was Lizard.
He was on there with his son. He had him. He had him here.
Oh, did he? I didn't see that.
Yeah.
And then we did. Then we did the best players out. We did the best players outside of Mecklenburg. These are the guys who did make the list outside of Mecklenburg. Jadeveon Klein is the best defensive player I've ever covered.
I mean, he was a freak of nature. I mean, he was number one number one coming out, number one draft. I mean, he was number one everything.
Yeah.
Passed the eye test, the whole deal.
We talked about Stephen Davis and Knuckles as being, the two greatest running backs of the era. Max Prep said Steve Davis the best player they ever saw in 2011. And Chris Hope was another one of those Rock Hill guys. He was number one in the country by Prep Stars. He was first team All USA Today. I mean, he was just incredible. We played a long time.
I've heard a lot of stories about him too. Yeah,
he was a freak. And then somehow at Sun Valley, it set all manner of records. I think he's number 2 behind Leak in the all-time career passing yards in North Carolina among public.
Now, I don't want to be like disrespectful, but T.A. McClendon, that's who I had to beat out for the job to play running back in the Arena League. So I didn't take his job.
T.A. McClendon High School. T.A. McClendon in high school was him.
Oh yeah, he was that guy. He was that guy. He wore it out. That might be true.
And then Nick,
what you have to pay off to beat out TA?
Trust me. It should have been. I was way better than him at that time. Too much greenery by then.
Nick Maddox is on there. Obviously, had to
Nick Maddox. That's one great ball player.
Yeah, if you just ask me the 5 best players I've ever covered or seen since I've been doing this, he'd be on the list. Nick Maddox. And then Will Shipley, Sam's guy, he's still scared of 9s. Sam.
That dude's terrifying.
I'll tell you, Nick Maddox would have owned every North Carolina rushing record if that man would have played in the fourth quarter in his career, because half the games that he played, he wasn't in the game.
Well, there's a lot of guys like that.
He was something special.
I get the sentiment. There's a lot of guys like that, but I get the sentiment. Will Shipley, Sam's scared of Will, as we know. We'll
Terrified of him. I mean,
terrified of Shipley. That's our guy. Friend of the show. And then another one of those great Crest linebackers, Brandon Spikes. We really came down to him and Shamar Finney. We leaned on Spikes a little bit, but they both were great. Spikes went on to Florida, won a national championship. As you guys know, he's in that.
That doesn't matter.
Gator special. He's one of the feature players.
that great special. He does a good job in that special that was done on the Florida team.
He was a talker like that in high school too. So
That's pretty cool. I like it.
And I put Surratt's on there together. I kind of cheated, but I put Surratt's on there together. Chaz was Parade National Player of the Year, and Sage was. He was the first player that Sam to ever be football state player of the year and basketball state player of the year in the same year.
That's pretty amazing.
Wait a minute. Didn't Mark May become state player of the year in both sports?
I think he was in track or baseball.
It was baseball, I think. Baseball and
baseball and football.
Well, let me say the stories that came out that year, the Associated Press story said he was the first player to be football and basketball.
Now, the crazy thing about the May family, if you ask anybody in the family, I'm talking about anybody, they would say the greatest athlete in their family all time is the mother.
Yep.
Oh, amen.
So
yeah.
You talking about some genetics going on right now? My goodness.
And I told you guys earlier that about the three guys I want to have the ball least. If I was supposed to coach, Rabbit Waddell would certainly be on that list. And he was one of our guys that made the best outside of Charlotte over the years.
You
to your
talked
point about the Rapp brothers being on there. To your point about the Rapp brothers being on there, if you're going to cheat like that and put both of them on there, I want to make a plug for Michael Waddell and Marcus Ellerby. It was what they did together those 2 years. So if we're going to have both Surratts, Waddell and Ellerby, you could go because they were both cornerbacks. They were both running backs. They both saw time on special teams. And
that's same bloodline, baby.
I back you up.
Ellerby in that
there's a whole lot of Ellerbys we could have put
championship game.
Let's
back you up on that.
Let's talk teams, Dale. There's all-time Sweet 16. I know you disagree, but there it is.
I got some good arguments on this one now.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, by far, I mean, they don't think it's really debatable, just maybe because you got the 16 instead of the 15. But talk to Joe Cox, talk to a bunch of members of the team. You got to think, when you build a dynasty, okay, the dynasty in 2001 was just beginning. It was a great team. You had, the great quarterbacks, the number one player you got, the whole deal, the best coach of all time. But 2004 would have whooped 2001 because you had
not even close.
Muhammad Massaquoi, Akeem Nicks, Billy Wiggins, Random Ingram. Okay, they had a 1,000-yard back that went to ECU and Dominique Lindsay. You had Joe Cox. The defense was stagnant. I'm talking about stupid. I knew members on the 2001 team. They wouldn't even made the roster on the 2004 team on the defensive line just because I think we get caught up with the Chris Leak aspect of him being a part of the 01 team that it's kind of hard to say that they would beat the 2004 team or they would beat the 2004. It would not happen.
I'm going to counter that I'm going to counter that argument. The 2001 team would have won that game, and here's why.
No,
there was so much talent, and we've looked at these lists right here. There was so much talent in the area that if you remember that 2001 team, Bill Romanelli, the middle linebacker, couldn't even get any love on this list. Somar Pearson.
Romanelli couldn't even play on the team of 2004. That's what I'm saying, Roman.
Somar Pearson, the outstanding defensive back, couldn't get any love on this list. Mario Crow, the 1,700-yard tailback, couldn't get any love on this list. That's how much talent there was in the area over these 40 years. But you throw in that situation, you throw in the situation with players of that caliber at all the skill spots and on the defensive end who didn't get any love because there being so much talent, and the resolve of that 2001 team evident in its ability. You remember they went down on the first two scores of that game versus Laney, and you saw the resolve kick in with the leadership of a junior quarterback, Chris Leak. And then for all that together to the point that Sam made earlier about
you have to look at it this
Pablo,
way.
Coach QB, 2001. When's that game?
You
I
won't
think you have
find
to
many
look at it
coaches
this
from
way,
Independence in that era that will agree with that. And you won't
I think
find
you have
many players from that era that played at Independence that'll agree with that. Because I've talked to
Yeah, I've talked to
coaches and
all these
players.
guys too. Yeah.
Exactly. None of
So
them agree with that.
was there any other? Sam, you said that you thought a Butler team should have been hired on the list. I'll say this. I'll say this about Independence 01-04. I won't push back hard against people who say Independence 04.
Those are the two best Independence.
I think Independence.
Oh, yeah, no question.
I think
No question.
I think Independence 01 because they had the greatest coach and the greatest quarterback. I think they figured out a way to win close in the fourth quarter. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. And they'll argue that for years and years.
I think 04 is deeper because
deep.
if you look at a depth chart, they're probably 3 deep at every position, whereas the 01 team was the starters because it's just kind of getting started with Tommy at that point. But by 04, it was a runaway train.
Yeah, I mean that's what you're talking about. You're talking about kids that, like Jeff Romanelli, as good as
that
was in 01 and stuff like that.
Peak Independence, and it could kind of slow down.
I'm trying to tell you, the best player on Romanelli and stuff like that in 01 wouldn't have even been able to play on an 04 team. I'm trying to tell you guys, they had the best coach. Okay, yes, with the best player at the generation of those are the two that made them so good. Okay, but I'm telling you, top to bottom,
they had All-American and wide receiver too.
You had 2 of them though. You had Massaquoi and Akeem Nicks.
Nicks was not Nicks yet in 04.
He still was on the team.
He was good, but he wasn't Knicks yet.
And who else? And who else was not part of the 04 team?
Okay,
most of the people on the 01 team played at Catawba with me.
Look, both
played at Catawba.
Both of those teams were really great.
And what else did the 04 team not have? Who else did the 04 team not have?
I don't know.
Thomas, Tyndall, Knotts.
Oh well,
Didn't need them.
That makes
they didn't need it. That's how good they were.
That's how good they were.
Right, Gyler was just able to.
That's exactly what we're talking about. Team. I'm trying to tell you, the team.
Sam, who else on here do you have? In this?
All right,
I know you talking about
the number 13 team. Okay,
13.
Butler
2010
is by far. And I talked to Steve Shaughnessy. I talked to a lot of members that they had to choose one. The 2010 team is going to go down as the best Butler team of all time. And I'll go down just to highlight a few things. 2010 won the state championship 44-0 against Roseville, shutout. All right.
Mm-hmm.
One of the defense is one of the best defenses ever assembled in the state of North Carolina ever. And you got to win with defense like that. Their offense is amazing too, but you're talking about just strictly on some of this stuff. I'm just going to tell you some of the guys are on this team. Okay. They got called back on a touchdown. It should have been 51-0. TD got called back on a punt return. Riley was the quarterback, broke all of Paxton Lynch's record at Memphis. Phenomenal player. Juwan Edwards still holds the rushing record at Ball State just because of his body, the way he looked. He didn't get highly recruited, but Juwan Edwards is probably the best running back to ever go through Butler High School. Linebackers. Look at these linebackers. Ozzie. All right. Sambo.
Ryan Houston?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. One of them didn't even play running back in college.
Interesting.
One of them didn't play running back in college like that. Like he wasn't as good. Like you're talking about
Ryan Houston didn't play running back in Carolina.
He played, but he didn't play like.
Am I missing something?
He did not play. He wasn't a starter all the time. All right. Just saying. You got a guy that holds the records in the conference. He still holds the record today.
He was Mecklenburg County's all-time leading rusher when he left.
But the way he looks, Ryan Houston looked the part. I'm trying to say the guy that played the part. Juwan Edwards was the
all-time leading rusher when he left school.
But the eye test adjusts people's vision. Just trust me. Juwan Edwards still holds today. Still holds the day at Ball State. Started as a freshman and still holds all the rushing records in the conference. Hold on. I'm still going. Trust me, I'm not even done. This is just the offensive side. Okay. Ozzie Sambo, Sean Wiggins. All right, Sean Wiggins, all MAC, played at Ball State. Chris Frost is on this team, 3-year starter. Auburn Peter Kallenbach, 3-year starter at Stanford, played 4 years in the NFL. D-line had Colin Parsons, full ride of the Citadel, BJ Woodley, who played in the Division II National Championship game for Lenore Ryan. Secondary had Austin Stewart, 3-year starter at Texas Tech. Channing Stribling, 3-year starter at Michigan. David Mood, full ride, Ball State.
I get the point. I get the point. What I'm saying,
2010.
what I'm saying
the
is
best
you
Butler
can
team.
lock in on any one of these teams and start naming all the things they have. It's just really hard when you try to say.
No, but you don't
It's kind
understand.
of like a question we have in our basketball chat, like what team is better than the other team when they really don't play. You just kind of eyeball it, and you would disagree with me, and I would disagree with Dale, and Dale would disagree with Cam. But I hear you. I mean,
I think that the one thing you got to understand, this 2010 team, okay, was in the prime of the Butler right here. They had to rally independence during this time. So right when the 09 was coming, they had to get up. And there's some teams that probably had better talent on Butler, but Independence had the stigma of the culture that would still beat them. The 2010
Butler was a team by 09. By 08.
In 2010, okay, you still forget Mallard Creek was beat by Chambers, aka Vance. Yeah, I mean they
were the team.
They were the team, like on the Sweet 16.
They believed it in 08. They believed it in 09.
Yeah.
I think when Butler went to Richmond in 09 and won that game, they ran that Statue of Liberty touchdown play with LeMay threw it. That was the turning point of Butler. That's when we got it. And but yeah, man, I don't disagree with any of the points you made about how great the talent was. Like I said, whoever puts this list together will do it differently. But
I think 09 Butler's probably the best, and that's just my opinion. But I think it's 09, then 10, then 12. But it's hard to argue against 12 because 12 was, if I'm not mistaken, top 6 or 7 in the country. As far as where they finished in the national rankings. So
almost all these teams ranked finished like that. They all.
I got Sam's back on this though.
On 12,
I'm telling you,
having watched them all
2010.
I got Sam's back.
Okay.
They actually finished the lowest in the national rankings, but
it's always fun to have the debate, guys. I appreciate you guys jumping.
National rankings don't watch the local ball, though.
They don't. Wait, Dale. Please say that again.
The national rank, the people that do these national rankings, they're not watching the ball here.
Right.
Gary, did you hear that?
They don't see it.
Gary, can you tape that and put it in the other
scoreboard? Scores.
Can you take that?
Remember it next Sunday when we do basketball.
Yeah, please remember that next time we do basketball. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all coming on out of season like this. It was a fun chat going down memory lane. I hope the viewers, we had a good many viewers watching. I hope the viewers enjoyed it.
No coaches?
We didn't discuss
no coaches?
Oh, coach. I'm sorry. My fault. Let me get. I don't even know if I had the coaches up.
Even though number 1 was automatic, let's go 2 through 5.
Exactly.
The number 1 is out of all the charts. That's probably the least debatable argument there is. Like Tommy Nance by far.
No, I had people argue me on that one too.
Well, they're just not intelligent, man.
I had people argue me on that one as well. Yeah. All right.
Look at that young Newsome right there. That's a daggone.
Here's the coaches. Tom Knotts 1, Mike Palmieri 2, Mike Brodowicz 3, Chad Greer 4, Mike Newsome 5. I will start out by saying everybody. I got a lot of Jim Odom calls.
I really wonder about that because
I just
learned from.
Brodowicz won 5 state titles.
Yeah, exactly. In a shorter period of time.
Odom had a lot.
I'm go with what Dale said. Yes, Brodowicz was great. There's no question about that. He was the coach of the decade. He deserved that. But we cannot have the Mike Brodowicz conversation without Jim Odom. As Dale said.
That's not I don't disagree with that. But you're talking about production. Mike won more state championships in a smaller amount of time. It's still about state championships.
We got a comment about should we have had Coach Ferb on there?
No,
I would disagree. Yeah, I don't think he quite there. I mean, he took over something that was already built. A lot of these things, people either raised it or built it. Raised it or built it. Like Coach Ferb did a great job, but it was really handed to him when he got there in a way where.
He said he went to 3 states in 3 years. That's true.
Coach Roberts, awesome coach.
They went to the state. They went to the state, but they went to the state before he got there too.
That's true. So I got a lot of Coach Odo. I got a lot of Bob Whitman and Country Day. I got some of Jason. Names escape me. Charlotte just retired. Charlotte Christian. One of
Jason Eastep.
Jason Eastep, thank you. I got a lot of his name. I got a couple Shaughnessy's. Somebody talked about Scott Braswell. I got a Scott Braswell. I got a Will Campagna, who was a coach at North Mech in the 80s and 90s.
Yep.
I'm going to stay with this list.
I got a Jim Hambacker from West Mech as well. I'm trying to think of the other ones I got.
All those guys are pioneers of the Charlotte area, but Charlotte, Charlotte didn't become great until like the 90s era.
I think there's a definite defining line from about 97 on where football in Charlotte was really good. Football, I mean, Dale gets mad when I say this. Football in Charlotte wasn't good when I was here up until
it's not that. It's everything was a lot different. We still had a number of teams getting championships, but
Dale 6 times in the 90s.
It wasn't that it was
every
bad.
team was in the first round except one.
Well, I'm going to argue a couple things here.
6 times in the 90s, we had every team in Charlotte lose in the first round except one.
What was that one, Coach? Can you say that one?
What of this list? The 5 on the list.
Yeah.
And I'm going to assert that number 2 should be Mike Newsome. Here's why. Mike Newsome was the coach. Mike Newsome was the coach who was the pioneer who first crossed the threshold in the landmark quest to catch and surpass independence. He was the one who set that standard that it could be done when the era of greatness in Charlotte Mecklenburg football had been ushered in, and everybody was playing not necessarily catch up because they were really good.
Hold on, Alex. Dale has a look. Go ahead, Dale. Say again, Dale.
Harden.
Bruce?
Yeah.
They were up 28. They were up 28-0 on Independence at Providence.
They took Independence to the wire. Yeah. I know Vance did too, but they jumped up on Independence 21-0. I think they got.
It was 28-0, wasn't it, Dale?
Was it 28-0?
I think it's 28. Butler was up 21 at Memorial.
Butler was up 21, lost double overtime.
Yeah, I think it was 28. It was 28.
Didn't matter.
I think the battles that Newsome had to go through to get there earns him what Alex is calling for. That whole the time he took over from Shuford and all those battles he had to do to build up and
he had to build calluses.
Exactly.
But
so I think that
you would rank him over Palmieri.
Yes.
Yeah, I would
probably have one more than 3 with all that talent.
To be honest with you, Newsome, if he would never say this out in public, but I can tell you this: if he stays at Butler, okay, during this time and does not take the job at A.L. Brown, there was no such thing as Miller Creek of those 3 years because everybody would have went to Butler. It would have It was Independence, then it was Butler, then he left the Butler, and they still kept some guys, but then it kind of filtered out, and then Miller Creek became the powerhouse.
If Newsome had stayed at Butler, would this conversation be different?
No.
Yes.
He'd have more.
He wouldn't have got the number 1, but
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if he would have beat Tommy Knotts, but he would have got a clear cut too.
I mean, Hales has done a phenomenal job. I'm just curious.
No. I'm not saying.
Had a lot of coaching power with Hales and Newsome together. I mean, that'd have been their version of not.
He would not have gone to number 1 for the following reason. The championships aside, but here's the other thing people don't consider about Tommy and his greatness. And I'm not going to talk scheme. We all know that's great. I'm not going to talk players. Tommy acknowledges that. I'm going to talk about, if you look back at Tommy's career trajectory, going from Harding, where he got to a state final and lost to Garner, going to West Charlotte, where before he led them to the 95 championship, got thrashed 39-6 by Northern Durham, gets that first championship in 95, then goes to Independence and starts the run. But people fail to realize or just forget that Tommy began again in so many ways in 2005 at Independence, not just returning as coach after a 1-year hiatus, but that 2004 loaded team graduated and he began again essentially with what he had to do before he began again at Dutch Fork. That 2005 Independence team, if Richmond County makes a field goal, they go to the state final. So once again, the resolve, ability to begin again at Independence a second time, then to go on to Dutch Fork and do what he did beginning again, like he began again at Independence and West Charlotte as well. Tommy would be number one for that reason. That transcends players, that transcends his scheme, anything else. So he would be number one. He would be number one, no matter.
I wasn't saying would Newsom be number one. I just said would the argument be changed.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question he's number one.
Tommy's won 15 chips. I mean, that's hard. It's hard to top.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm just saying, like, it would be a clear cut number two. I think, you know.
Cam argues for Bruce Harden. Cam says Bruce Harden should be on the list that we were talking about outside of Mecklenburg County. Bruce won what, 2 chips? He won one at Dale Brown and one at Providence State. Is that right?
2 at Brown, 1 at PD.
2 at Brown. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to definitely. I mean, him and Mike Stewart would be one I would think of, but Darryl Barnes outside of Mecklenburg County for the time that we covered is a clear number one.
This was a time though in Cabarrus County, or in the history of it, where there were a lot of good teams that in A.L. Brown's conference alone. I mean, you talk about times where they could have won the state championship, but Concord got in their way in the early 2000s. Kings Mountain was even good back then.
Can you rank Harden? Can you rank Harden over Easy Smith? Is a question in Cabarrus County. That would be a tougher question because Easy Smith has a dominant record over A.L. Brown, and that's something that you have to think about. But I think both of those guys, if I was talking about schools outside of Charlotte that we've covered over the years, Easy Smith and Bruce definitely be on the list. But Darryl Barnes would be a clear number one. Almost as much like Tommy is. What you say, Dale?
Darryl Barnes, yeah.
Darryl Barnes, he was like 75-1 at one point. It was
tell Newsom I'm coming for him. They're going to take him off the list in another 40 years.
Secord.
Well, I won't be the one doing that. Maybe Cam be the one doing that. I won't be the one doing that.
Langston, did you guys even consider Secord?
No.
He was before the Sweet 16.
The team he had that did the damage was before the Sweet 16.
Yeah, he was 81 because I played against that team.
Yeah, if you were talking about,
that's right, that was pre-Sweet 16.
Yeah, you're talking about the greatest high school teams ever from Charlotte. I think South Meck with Kelvin Crooms and those guys would have to be on the list somewhere. I don't know where, but they wouldn't be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. But
what would be a cool one to do is
I don't think I'd put that one on there. What do you say, Sam?
Something to debate. The greatest coaches.
The other ones.
The greatest coaches to never win a state championship would be kind of interesting to talk about.
Well, I tell you, the greatest. We thought about doing the greatest teams that didn't win a state championship and didn't win the Sweet 16 championship. We thought about that one, but I didn't think about that one. But because we thought about the '96 West Charlotte team was probably the best West Charlotte team. They lost in
Butler, the one that lost to Independence, that wrote 21-0.
Dunlap ran a 4th and 10 draw.
What about Butler in 2000 and was it 1? 2?
When they lost to Independence in the regional final. In the regionals, that was a good team. Yeah,
that was 2000.
Who'd y'all give it to in 2019? Weddington or Vance?
What'd you say, Sam?
2000.
No. 2001 or 2. It was Shuford's, I think, last year.
Oh, the Shuford, the one that was the most dominant team though that Butler might have had that never won a state championship was the one that they played. They were down. They were up 21-0. Then Independence went double tice, ran the counter play, came back and won in double overtime.
I think the danger is when you get caught into what you really know or what you experience or your school is that everybody has those stories about their school. We have to kind of come out of that.
I wasn't a part of that though. I'm
just saying that's Butler's near and dear, so we have to kind of take.
I'm saying that I know personnel of the Independence realm. Like I grew up during that time.
That's what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is I've been a part. But that's the concept.
Sam and I go by the eye test because we've been coaches and we know talent versus talent. Matchup versus matchup.
I think familiarity also plays a role in that. That's all.
Not in a way when I'm not saying the Butler team is better than the Independence team. I didn't argue none of that. I'm saying the best Butler team. I've been very, I thought even keel because I'd be like, no, that Butler team was better than the Independence team. See what I'm saying? So like, I've just known I played against the Independence team.
I mean, I've heard a lot of Butler people make the argument to me. They feel like their best teams are better than Independence best teams. I've heard that many times. But you know, it's all this is into the subjective. And
it's
but
fun
Langston, who
talking
did y'all
about
give the banner to in 2019?
Chambers.
Yeah, they won, and so did Weddington in 3AA going undefeated. So talk about doing a list of the best teams that didn't get the banner.
That's certainly.
I mean,
West Charlotte
kept
95.
Lee County put up 35 on that Lee County defense. Just saying.
Not all those West Charlotte teams in the 90s.
95 didn't get no Mecklenburg County. The first Mecklenburg County champion, I think, was Independence in 2000. So that was. We only had one champion. We only had one champion in 90.
West Charlotte 95.
From 77 to 2000, West Charlotte only had two
one
champions. No, they had
right, but I'm talking about the teams that they didn't win the state championship, but they were really, really good teams.
Oh yeah.
That's what I mean.
The 91 West Charlotte team with Knuckles that lost 10-7 when he got his nose broke and his face mask broke in the first quarter and he wasn't himself. That was an incredible football team, but he just couldn't do anything in the championship game. They lost 10-7 to Southview, maybe I can't remember. But that was one of the best teams too. But yeah, there's been a lot of great teams.
What kind of hairdo did you have during that 91? Did you have the flat top?
Got a flat top.
Yeah, the afro.
I want to picture that. I think honestly, the only thing that you messed up on this is my final thought for the day because I get a little final thought, right?
You can't
final thought is right now. Check it out.
It's off season, Sam. It's off season.
No, hold on. Let me just say. I just think the only thing the Observer was missing was a picture. We should have had a throwback picture of Langston's all his hard work that he's done. We should have had a flat top picture that he had posted when he has his picture in the Observer. He needed to go old school and go back, when it all started. If we could have saw that flat top, it would have been just like I would have bought 20 copies of that thing.
That's funny. But fellas, I appreciate y'all coming on. I love the argument and the banner. You guys reviewing, actually, this is a lot what our chats look like, our pregame, our text chat. Everybody tell me how wrong I am all the time. So and these guys, I think everybody needs people to keep them honest, and these guys keep me honest, and I appreciate them for that. And I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you with this group back in the fall with Talking Preps football. But we got Talking Preps basketball coming on at 8:00 tonight. We're gonna talk about the shot clock, and Alex is gonna go nuts when we talk about the shot clock. So make sure you guys tune in for that. We'll catch you guys next time on Talking Preps.
All right now.